welcome to EarthX 2026. I'm Dr. Tracy Fanara, and I am here with Danny Sudman, and I'm so excited to talk to him because he's got this. Well, we're gonna let him tell you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Tracy. It's good to be here. Yeah, so we're highlighting Compost Heroes as one of the educational initiatives of Green Camps. So Green Camps is a nonprofit that I funded about 10 years ago, and we work with youth camps to help them define what sustainability looks like and really look at culture. How do we build buy-in? How do we change culture of an organization? So culture is a big lift to get to change the way that we think around these ideas, and we do it through gameplay with games like Compost Heroes.
That's awesome. You know, I tried for a long time to change adults' minds and to educate adults. And it wasn't until I turned to kids that I realized that I can actually be effective. So I think that you're doing it the right way, you know, changing that culture. We really need to start with these kids, you know, because you take an 8-year-old in 10 years, they're voting, they're on their own at college, you know, so I think that you're going about it the right way. And I love your message on composting. Can you tell me how basically you started, out of all the problems in the world and all the solutions in the world, you hit composting?
Yeah, so actually I don't know if we started with composting necessarily. It just one that floated to the top is just a really big issue with food waste, which I like to refer to. I want to change the narrative from food waste to wasted food.
Oh, I love that.
Because we're putting so much energy into create this food. It's not waste. You know, there's energy and time that goes into creating that. But we started working with youth camps and really using data collection to understand, you know, what does sustainability mean and look like to an organization? So by asking really good questions, we can highlight some of the areas that are important to those camps. And food waste came up repeatedly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think that everybody, the people that are privileged enough to have enough food, a lot of times we have too much food on our plate and we're like, well, we don't want to waste food, but the truth is it's a waste either way, right? When I heard someone say that to me, it was so impactful, because whether you're full and you're feeding yourself more or you're throwing away that food, it's a waste either way. And seeing food get thrown out is kind of stressful.
Yeah, stressful, and it's staggering the amount of it. And I don't think we can't picture it. It's so really hard to picture those ideas. There's some great artists and photographers doing work to help identify and picture what does that look like. So when we say 30 to 40% of food waste, or wasted food is going to the landfill, it's hard to imagine what that looks like.
And especially in a landfill, right? Because of all that nutrients and organic material that could be degraded and broken down in a lined landfill. You're taking that out of Earth systems.
Right. Yeah, and it's such a simple process, right? I mean, to think about Earth systems, it's a very natural process. Nature has been doing this since forever, right? And we think one of my favorite factoids I like to share with folks is thinking about topsoil, because composting is one way that we can enrich our topsoil, right? 1 inch of topsoil. Any guesses on how long it takes to build 1 inch of topsoil in nature, in the natural world?
I don't know, but it seems like it's a huge problem, so I'm going to guess a long time.
It's about 500 years.
What?
If you think about how whenever we break food down, those natural organic materials are breaking down, and the mass gets small, right? It's breaking down there. And so in an average place, it's about 500 years before it breaks down enough to grow 1 inch of topsoil.
Over what area?
Oh, well, it's variable, right? It's a broad kind of average, right? So the rainforest is probably going to be quicker. In the desert, there's not as moisture, so it's going to be a little bit longer as we go there. But on average, that's what we're talking. And with composting, it's something that nature does. It's a cycle that's nature already doing, and we can learn from the way nature goes through this process, and we can make it more efficient.
Right.
I mean, how many technologies and things are based off of nature that we've learned, and we can bring it in and make it more efficient? And so we can take that time and we can dramatically increase the rate at which we're converting that wasted food into that topsoil.
Okay, now I have so many questions about composting in general, because for me, it's kind of been intimidating. And I'm, my mission is Inspector Planet, I should be doing all the sustainable things. But composting is one area. First of all, I'm not afraid to eat leftovers. I have very little food waste. And it's just like me, but it's kind of, tell me about the process, how somebody like me can take a first step and grow a system that isn't doesn't really like disturb my daily life?
Yeah, great question. So I would say number one, we don't want to necessarily start looking at composting. Like, how can we first off like divert
Reduce.
our like food stream, right? Our waste stream. So looking at things like eating leftovers is huge, right? And being aware of our consumption. But once we get to the point, because we're going to create food waste, so what do we do with that? There's very simple home composting systems, and that's where in developing this game, I really think about there's 5 main things that we're looking at, right? So we have our decomposers, so our fungus, bacteria, and invertebrates. They are the workhorses. They're eating all the organic matter. They eat it up and they poop it out. And this is a fun place to be able to say poop when you're talking about composting. It's because safe spaces here.
They are so underrated.
Yeah.
They do not get the respect that they deserve. But go
I think
on.
so, yeah.
Right.
Well, and 80% of those FBI, is like the fungus, bacteria, and invertebrates, are bacteria. So we don't actually see them, like the visual part of it. So we're feeding them carbon and nitrogen, and kind of the 2 components of organic material. And then just like us, they're organisms. They need air and they need moisture. And so when we're building a compost pile, we're bringing those 5 layers in, and it's in how we balance those things. And so making sure that we get the balance of carbon and nitrogen, the moisture ratios are set right. You want it to be the consistency of a wrung out sponge. You don't want too much water.
Okay.
Because you're going to get too much nitrogen and it's going to stink. And that's probably one of the number one concerns folks have with composting.
Yeah, that it's going to smell. Yeah. But if you do it right, it doesn't smell, right?
Correct. Yeah. So there's simple collection. I think it's a lot about systems as well. And this is a lot of what I think about when an organization wants to start composting, is to think about the people involved in the system. And if it's just somebody living in a house, it's just you in that system. When we expand those systems and we're serving more people, it becomes more complex.
Yeah.
Because the contamination becomes a big issue. If we're putting the wrong things in the compost, then it's going to make it more challenging. It's going to make it stinkier. Or if we're sending it off to a local composting facility, they might not accept it because of those things. So depending on the scale, if you're just doing it in your backyard versus you're scaling up, and there's local community programs, and there are great programs that are scaling right now, and more, the composting industry is booming. So there's more haulers, there's depackaging facilities that can actually take contaminated food waste.
Yeah.
It used to be if you had contaminated food waste, that went to the landfill. But now they've come up with technologies to come through that. But to answer your question originally, I think a simple compost tumbler or vermiculture are very easily managed systems that you can add the food waste, and you just have to manage what you put in there. The easiest system that I've seen are dehydrators. Now, I have mixed feelings on dehydrators, but it takes the moisture out, so it gets rid of the smell, and the volume drops significantly.
Okay.
So there's cost-benefit analysis in almost any decision that you make. And so I think it's really kind of to the point of what we do at Green Camps. Ask the questions and figure out what system is going to work better for you, for your organization, for your family or your household, and then look at those solutions that are offered there to help overcome those things.
That's amazing. You mentioned people, and I know that you have a big focus on community and people into systems. Can you explain that a little bit? Because you were explaining it earlier, but I think that everybody would want to hear that.
Yeah, no, thanks. I'm glad you brought that up. So I studied sociology, and so I love the interaction of people. I think it's a very interesting way in which our behaviors are engaging with the environments that we're around. So I started in youth summer camps. This is how I came to launch a nonprofit for sustainability in the camp industry. And when I moved to California to work in an outdoor ed program, they had a really robust outdoor education program. And there was this light bulb moment. We all have those moments, right, where we find these things that like really connect. And that moment for me was when we were looking at ecology in these natural environments. So we would take kids hiking and snorkeling and look at microscope labs in the marine environment and look at how these communities were functioning. And natural communities do such a great job of demonstrating what sustainability looks like. Yeah. They're not wasting resources, there's interconnectedness, there's biodiversity, everything runs on energy, and they use those resources very wisely. So the light bulb came when we tied those concepts to the social ecosystem. How do people use our resources? How do people collaborate or cooperate to overcome challenges? And we can look at what nature does to solve these and draw those back to the human connection there. And so that was really the moment that sparked it off to say, look what we can learn from the natural environment. And so I was very fortunate to work in camps and outdoor education to facilitate experiences where these kids and adults
Yeah.
see what sustainability looks like, and that changes their behavior. It's not me telling them something, it's them having these engaging experiences, which it's led to a wonderful trajectory to be able to provide this experience for folks.
That's really the key, right? I love that application of biomimicry
Yeah.
into social science. That is really cool. Now, when it comes to kids and camps and composting, what have you noticed has really worked? Maybe the game and just games in general. Like, what are the things that you have the kids do? I mean, you just explained just being out in nature,
Yeah.
but yeah, tell me about this game.
Yeah, I think leadership has a lot to do with it. A lot of
Okay.
my work is in leadership development because role models are so important, If you go to summer camp, like as kids, camp staff are such role models, and kids look up at them and they say, wow, you are amazing, you're so influential, and we're modeling these amazing behaviors, right? And so if we can model behaviors like picking up a piece of trash or carrying our water bottle around, we can really demonstrate to kids, and they mimic those, right? So I think that's a big piece of it, is a leadership development to
Yeah.
model those behaviors. I think getting involved, I'm really encouraging of the camps that we work with. When we sit down and we have these green team meetings to look at the resources and the data that we've collected, I want campers to have voice, to have agency, and have the conversation. I think a lot of camps, organizations in general, might be nervous to invite people to the conversation because somebody might come in and say, we really want to start recycling, or we really want to start composting, and that's scary because it's a lot of work. It's a big lift. When you're scaling a process like
Yeah.
composting, can be intimidating. And I think by being pragmatic and demonstrating, like, yes, this is very challenging to do, join the conversation and understand why it's challenging, and help us come up and be creative with some of those solutions, and get them involved.
Yeah.
Our program in California that I worked at, every evening we would have open activity, and we'd have 40, 50 kids come up, and they've got pitchforks in the compost, they're sifting soil,
Yeah.
they're planting in the garden, or they're just hanging out and engaging with others. And it just became a part of the culture of the organization. Now, that didn't happen overnight, right? We
Right.
modeled those behaviors and built that culture around it. But I think that's leadership development, building a culture is super important in accomplishing that.
Yeah, I love it, and especially the fact that this is done at camps, because you're at camp, you're in the wilderness, and you should be able to and learn to sustain and live with the environment, and not always depend on, the landfills and water and sewer and all the things. Like, it's really important. And I think this because I'm in Florida, we have extreme weather events all the time. Infrastructure is down, power is down, and when people don't have survival skills, when people don't understand that connection between them and the environment, there's catastrophe. We saw a lot of looting, people walking around not knowing what to do after Hurricane Ian, and it's just very sad. That's why I started doing survival skills at my camp too. And I think that this is amazing because I never thought of adding composting, and now I'm like, how did I not do that? That's got to be, you need that. So how long do you think that it would take a camp to transition to composting and having the campers be part of it, playing this game?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, again, it takes buy-in.
Yeah.
And so it's understanding where somebody is at, whether you're doing it individually as an organization, what's your appetite for it. And I talk a lot about values. Like, where do the values line up for this within your mission? A lot of camps are nonprofit. There's for-profit camps as well. But we all have values. And I think a lot of times we can tie it back and make it a priority to implement those. And I think right now, if a camp hasn't even started yet, they have the capacity to implement these, even if it's just one compost tumbler.
Yeah.
You don't have to divert 100% of food waste in year one. The goal is to engage campers and staff and help them see the value of it. And then the next year when they come back, maybe you have 2 or 3 compost tumblers, or maybe you've built a trench, or
Yeah.
maybe you work with another hauler. There's lots of options. I'm working with several camps in Western North Carolina right now to collaborate with some haulers and some facilities that accept compost. And so that takes a lot of the weight off because it's work. I mean, at the end of the day, we're asking them to do more work.
Right.
Right.
And that was my next question: is how can people get you to to being consultant, or to like, how do you work with camps? Like, how can we get your message out for camps to contact you?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're on social media, Go Green Camps, sharing the message and the work that we're doing. We're highlighting that we're here at this amazing event as well. And we work with camps, like the onboarding process. We collect data. So we have a free assessment that camps and organizations can go through. I have so many resources and ideas and tools and games that I used to joke that our website was a black hole of resources.
Yeah.
Composting in bear country, laundry to landscape systems. And that's not what people need. They don't need a list of resources and ideas. They need help building the culture.
Yeah.
So we help collect the information so that when we sit down and do a green team building session with their green team, we can help pull that data and help direct them to the resources and then create that strategic plan.
I love that. But I'm sure having all those resources, that black hole, kind of gives it credibility. So they know, when you're tailoring a plan for them, it's not like a cookie cutter thing. You're literally picking from all of these skills and all of these alternatives towards them and their specific needs, which
Right.
I think is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work, but
Yeah.
again, we have to. One solution isn't going to fit everyone.
I know.
A lot of people would love like a nice dressed up box with a bow on it and
Would
slide
they,
it
though?
across the table and say we're done. We figured it out.
But you can't.
No.
Like you got to make them feel like, if they're spending money on something, if they're going to change, because change is the hardest thing for anybody to do, right? If they're going to change, they want to know that that change is specific for success for them. And I love that you do that.
It's a pleasure. I really
Yeah.
enjoy the work. It's so fun. And I think, it circles back to our game. And that's how we can really learn and grow. And I think you can see those things in the moment.
Yeah.
You see the wheels turning as someone either posed a good question and they start contemplating that and be like, oh, I haven't really thought of that before.
Yes.
And for someone in sustainability, to you and I, it might seem like, of course, that's what we need to be doing. But sometimes you share these ideas and concepts and not everybody is as passionate about sustainability.
Yeah.
And you learn that along the way. No one will ever be as passionate as we are
As
about
you are.
sustainability.
Right, of
And that's
course.
okay. That's okay. So we can provide the experiences to help kind of bring them along and open their eyes up to potential opportunities and engage them in considering these concepts and ideas.
Yeah. So we're almost out of time, but I wanted to kind of just share how awesome this game is because first of all, it's really easy to understand. Even just looking, I know what I'm going to do, and you learn from doing this. Yeah. What I mean, do you want to say anything about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to kind of the idea of building the pile, right?
Yeah.
We talked about the different layers, and each of the hero cards represents a different layer, and tried to tie it together so whenever you have an effect of the card, it matches with the idea and the concept behind each card. So you're really focusing on this idea of transformative play.
Yeah.
So we're not focused so much directly in the play on teaching you how to compost.
Right.
That's happening on the side, and it's also a lever. Like, this is a great resource for an educator.
Yeah.
I think you're going to learn as you play regardless, but for an educator to be able to facilitate a conversation and say, play this game, and our kids are excited now and they've got some of these basic concepts, it allows them to leverage them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we collect the different cards, it builds the pile, there's fun kind of aspects to it. One of my favorite cards is the plastic contamination, which kind of stops the game a little bit. Like, it puts a pause on things to understand sometimes we have things that are going to ruin our compost pile,
Right.
to shed light on it.
I love that so much, and you really have to trick people into. I'm in TV, and you always have to. That is the way to do it. You have to entertain, to educate.
Yeah, I think games are really fun. It doesn't matter what you think about composting or any of the other ideas around sustainability.
It's just a good game.
If you're playing a fun game, then those learning things will come and play as well. So we're really excited to work with school districts. We've gotten a lot of interest to be able to get these into schools for educators to use them and all the other opportunities that will come. This is brand new. I came up with this through a program that I led last year. I just had this idea of Compost Heroes, and the reception has just been really positive. It's getting kids off screens, they're engaging, and it comes back to teamwork as well.
Yeah.
When you're playing a game, you're interacting, you're communicating, you're using critical thinking and problem-solving skills. So
Yeah.
it checks a lot of boxes for sure.
And look how compact this
Yeah.
game is. I would
Yeah.
love. I want to buy one of these, please.
I got you.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been wonderful.
I appreciate it, Tracy. Thank you.